In Green Mile, John Coffey is arrested and sentenced to death for the rape and murder of 2 white girls. But when he gets in prison, it gets clear that John had been arrested for a crime that he didn't commit. The warden, who befriended John due to his empathic personality and healing powers, attempts to help him avoid being unjustly executed. Still, John refuses, stating that he also wishes to leave this cruel world. On the day of the execution, John refuses to tell the warden that he doesn't wear the hood because he is afraid of the dark, and the whole scene is so heart-wrenching that all of the guards are brought down to tears. After an apocalyptic infection breaks out, Joel Miller, along with his brother Tommy and his 12-year-old daughter Sarah Miller, attempts to escape the city. Joel manages to get to the exit highway from the city but is attacked by an infected individual. A border soldier saves them and calls his superiors to ask if they should be led across the border, but he is ordered to kill them. Joel tries to reason with him, but it is futile as the soldier opens fire. Joel shields Sarah as they fall to the ground, and just as the soldier is about to finish them, Tommy comes and kills him. However, Joel doesn't realize that a bullet has hit Sarah, and she begins to cry, and you can hear how scared she is of dying. Joel begs her to hold on, but she unfortunately doesn't make it. For the rest of the game, Joel doesn't move on from Sarah's death, and this helps develop his connection with Ellie during their adventures. In the second part of the Last of Us game, Joel and his brother Tommy save a girl named Abby from a group of infected, and to repay the goodwill, Abby takes them back to her base. But when she gets there, one of her companions points out the true identity of these men, including the fact that one of them, Joel Miller, was responsible for the death of her father. In the first part of the game, Joel killed Abby's father because he was among the doctors who were in charge of experimenting on Ellie. Immediately, Abby discovers that she is in the room with the man who killed her father, and she shoots Joel in the leg with a shotgun, and Tommy is knocked out cold. She then tells her group members to tourniquet Joel's leg to prevent him from dying from bleeding out. Ellie, who is searching for Joel and Tommy, then finds out where all of this is happening, and by the time she arrives, Joel is already on his last breath. Abby had beaten him almost to death with a golf club. Ellie is then pinned to the ground by the rest of Abby's group and forced to watch Joel die. She then screams at him to get up, but Joel barely has anything left. Abby then lands the final hit on Joel, and everything goes almost mute for Ellie. Gandalf was a powerful wizard and one of the main characters in The Lord of the Rings. He was wise, calm, and acted like a guide and protector to the group of heroes known as the Fellowship of the Ring. He was close to Frodo Baggins, the young hobbit who was chosen to carry the One Ring to Mount Doom. During their journey through the Mines of Moria, the group was attacked by goblins and forced to escape. While trying to flee, the Balrog, a vast and really terrifying creature, stopped them. Gandalf stayed behind to fight the Balrog, allowing the rest of the group to escape safely. As they fought on a narrow bridge, Gandalf managed to break the bridge and made the Balrog fall into the darkness. But just as it seemed like he had won, the Balrog grabbed Gandalf with its whip and dragged him down with it, leading to his death. His death shocked the group and left them broken. It was one of the most surprising and emotional moments in the movie. He gave his life to save his friends and allow the mission to continue, despite knowing the danger it posed. For many viewers, it was heartbreaking as well, because Gandalf was a favorite character to many. Mufasa's younger brother, Scar, plotted to assassinate him and Simba with the help of his hyena minions. One day, while roaming the Pride Lands with Mufasa, Zazu reported that a wildebeest herd was on the move, which Mufasa found odd. Just then, Scar reported that Simba was trapped in a stampede in the gorge. Mufasa rushed in to save him. After getting Simba to safety, Mufasa tried to climb out. At the top of the gorge, Mufasa begged Scar to help him, but Scar pierced Mufasa's paws with his claws. He then leaned in and said, "Long live the king." As Mufasa looked at him in horror, Scar let go of his paws and he fell into the stampede, where he was trampled to death. Mufasa's death had a significant impact on the kingdom. Scar took over as king and led the land into starvation and ruin. He tricked Simba into thinking he was responsible for Mufasa's death, causing Simba to run away for years. For many children, this was their first experience with grief on screen. In Avengers Endgame, the Avengers were fighting a final battle against Thanos and his massive army. Their goal was to bring back half of the world's population that Thanos had made disappear by snapping his fingers in the prequel, Avengers: Infinity War. After a series of personal combats with some of the Avengers, Thanos believes he has acquired all the stones. He then says, "I am inevitable," and snaps his fingers but fails. Unknown to him, Iron Man had stolen the stones and attached them to his custom gauntlet. He looked at Thanos and muttered his last words, "I am Iron Man," before snapping his fingers to reverse the destruction. The power surge from the stones was too much for a human body to handle. Tony collapsed right after and died with Pepper Potts, Peter Parker, and the rest of the team by his side. Later, a funeral was held at his lake house. All the heroes gathered to pay their respects. In the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, during the final round of the Triwizard Tournament, Harry Potter and the other contestants find themselves in a maze to retrieve a trophy cup. One of the contestants, Cedric Diggory, and at the end of the maze, Harry and Cedric finish first together and decide to retrieve the cup at the same time. But when the two grab the cup, it transports them to an unknown graveyard where Voldemort and his henchman, Peter Pettigrew, are waiting for Harry Potter. Voldemort, who only needed Harry Potter, then tells Peter Pettigrew to kill the spare, referring to Cedric, and Peter immediately strikes him down with the King Curse. Cedric's death was fast and somewhat painless, but the scenes that followed are what made it heart-wrenching. Harry then gets into a spell battle with Voldemort, and then Cedric's ghost comes to motivate him, asking him to take his body back to his father. Harry Potter then manages to escape and returns to the school with Cedric's dead body. When he arrives, celebrations erupt, but Harry refuses to join in and remains on the ground in tears with Cedric's body. With time, everybody realized what had happened, and this particular scene of Cedric's father mourning his son was really hard to watch. Cedric's death is just one of the numerous emotional deaths in the Harry Potter franchise, including the deaths of Snape, Sirius Black, Dumbledore, and the beloved house elf Dobby. In How to Train Your Dragon 2, the village of Berk faced a new threat in Drago Bludvist, a deranged evil dragon capture that wanted to destroy the world with his dragon army. During a battle with Drago Bludvist's army, all of the dragons get hypnotized by the alpha dragon under Drago's control, including Toothless. Drago then orders Toothless to kill Hiccup, and just as he is about to blast him, Stoic jumps in the way and saves his son, but Stoic doesn't make it. After Toothless regains control of himself, he realizes what he has done and comes to apologize, but in a heart-tearing manner, Hiccup chases him away. Stoic's death is so emotional, considering that he had just found his wife after 20 years, and they had both agreed to go back to Berk together. In BoJack Horseman, Sarah Lynn's death was quite heartbreaking, particularly because of her last words. Sarah was a star actress from a young age and featured on the same sitcom as BoJack, Horsing Around. However, that was not the life she wanted, and with time, she began to live recklessly, indulging in severe substance use and an unhealthy, self-destructive relationship with BoJack. On the night of the Oscars Awards, she and BoJack go on a bender and do heroin in a motel, and while they are there, Sarah Lynn drifts in and out of consciousness continuously. They turn on the TV and realize that Sarah's song won an award, and she gets filled with regret that she wasn't there to receive her prize. To cheer her up, BoJack then takes her to the planetarium to watch the stars. Sarah then leans on BoJack's shoulders and says, "I just want to be an architect," and from there passes on. There's a long, unsettling silence behind as BoJack calls out her name repeatedly. To make it even worse, BoJack doesn't call an ambulance until 17 minutes after she passes away. The whole build-up to Sarah's death is just filled with heavy emotions, regret, and unfulfilled dreams. Lu Ten was the son of General Iroh and the cousin of Zuko in the series Avatar, The Last Airbender, who died during the siege of Ba Sing Se in the Earth Kingdom, which took place years before the main events of the series. But in an episode, we see General Iroh mourn Lu Tuen on his birthday. In the scene, he lays a portrait of Lu Ten under a tree and talks about how he wishes he could help him. He then sings the very somber and emotional Little Soldier Boy song while sobbing uncontrollably. It was a very touching scene, mainly because of the character contrast we see Iroh embody, considering how much of a joyful individual he is typically. In Avatar, The Last Airbender, we also have the very painful and sad transition of Princess Yue of the Northern Water Tribe, who sacrificed herself in place of the moon spirit that General Zhao killed. The film, 1917, is an account of the Battle of Passchendaele between the British forces and the Germans. Two Lance Corporals, Tom Blake and William Schofield, were sent to inform the Devonshire Regiment to call off their planned attacks the next day. On their way, they come across a dogfight between two English planes and a German plane. The English planes then shoot the German plane from the sky, and it crashes right into the barn, where the two stop to watch. They save the German pilot from burning in the plane, and while Schofield suggests that they kill the pilot and save him from his misery, Tom refuses and tells Schofield to get him some water. Just as Schofield turns, the pilot stabs Tom, and Schofield immediately kills the German, but Tom is seriously bleeding, and the two are far from any medical care. The scene that follows is really touching, as you can feel how much Will Tom had to live and survive the stab, but his injury was way too bad for him to keep up. Just before he passed away, he asked Schofield, "Am I dying?" To which he replied, "Yes," in the most heartbreaking manner. Just before his fight with Emperor Commodus, the Emperor came to where he had Maximus chained and stabbed him with a stiletto, which left the gladiator already injured before their battle. In the arena, Maximus manages to kill the Emperor, but he has already lost a lot of blood. He gives the army commander, Quintus, his final wishes, asking him to free his men and reinstate Senator Gracchus. Maximus then fades into the afterlife, where his late wife and son are already waiting for him. The somber music, the sense of accomplishment, and the joy in Maximus's smile make the whole scene emotional but satisfying at once. Boys in the Hood is a 1991 classic about the prevailing gang violence in Los Angeles during that time. However, despite all the gang-related activities and gun violence in the area, Ricky was the golden boy, a straight-A student with a bright future in college and a super talented football player. However, Ricky gets caught up in the violence. He and Trey go on an errand, and on their way, they run into some rival gang members. One of them recognizes Trey, and the gang chases them. Ricky then suggests that he and Trey split up to ensure that one of them gets home safe, but not long after, the two separate, the gang members pull up, and one of them kills Ricky with a shotgun. When Ricky's body is taken home, there's a lot of wailing from Ricky's mother, Brenda, and the mother of his child, Shanice. Ricky's death also signified the death of what seemed like renewed hope. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is a 2008 film that gives a very touching account of Nazi-occupied Poland. Bruno, an 8-year-old German boy, is moved to Poland after his father gets promoted in the military to oversee a concentration camp. While struggling to get indoctrinated in Nazi teachings, Bruno wanders to a concentration camp behind his house, where he befriends a Jewish boy, Shmuel, who is a prisoner in the camp. At the end of the film, Bruno sneaks into the concentration camp to help Shmuel find his father, but when the boys get inside, they are rounded up and taken to a gas chamber. At the same time, Bruno's family realize that he is missing and track him down to the concentration camp, but they only find his clothes and the hole through which he sneaked in. In the gas chamber, Bruno and Shmuel are told to take off their clothes, and you can see so much fear in their eyes. There is also so much anguish in the gas chamber from the other prisoners inside, which makes the scene very disheartening. A soldier then pours in pesticide pellets from the roof. Bruno holds onto Shmuel's hand and is ready to die with his friend. According to the novel by John Boyne, which the movie is based on, Bruno whispers to Shmuel, "You're my best friend, Shmuel," to which Shmuel replies, "You're mine too, Bruno." In Shawshank Redemption, Brooks Hatlin was an inmate in the Shawshank prison, and after serving a 50-year-long sentence, he gets released on parole. However, when Brooks gets out, he finds it hard to adjust to the new world that he meets outside. Everything is faster, and the world has gone through half a century's worth of development. Brooks felt useless, especially because of how important he was back in prison as a librarian. In his final scenes in the film, Brooks writes a letter back to his friends in prison, and in a very childlike manner explains how much and fast everything had changed, how he struggles with work and the noise in the outside world. The montage then ends with Brooks hanging himself in the room he stayed, after he inscribed the words "Brooks was here" on the wall. In the series finale of Regular Show, Pops faces his ultimate destiny in a battle that would determine the fate of the entire universe. In the final confrontation with his evil brother Anti-Pops, Pops realizes that the only way to break the cycle of universal destruction is through the ultimate sacrifice. During their battle in space, Pops chooses to hug Anti-Pops instead of fighting him, knowing this act of love and forgiveness would cost him his life. As they embrace, both brothers fade away into stardust, but not before Pops gives one final, peaceful smile. The scene then transitions to show how Pops' sacrifice allowed everyone to live their lives, with a montage of the Park Gang growing old and living fulfilling lives. What makes Pops' death so emotional is that his innocent character, who spent the entire series being protected by his friends, becomes their ultimate protector. His willingness to sacrifice himself for the universe, combined with his gentle, loving nature right until the end, creates one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking conclusions in animated television. In the story of Charlotte's Web, Charlotte the Spider forms an unlikely friendship with Wilbur the Pig after saving his life through her clever web messages that convince the farmers he's too special to slaughter. However, after laying her egg sac in autumn, Charlotte grows increasingly weak, as spiders naturally die after reproducing. At the county fair, where she had helped Wilbur win a prize that would secure his safety, Charlotte can barely move. When Wilbur realizes what's happening, he desperately tries to convince her to come back to the farm with him. Charlotte, with her remaining strength, tells Wilbur that she cannot return with him, explaining that she doesn't have much time left. She reassures him that he's been a good friend and that he'll be fine without her. Charlotte then peacefully passed away alone at the fairgrounds, having fulfilled her promise to save Wilbur's life. When Wilbur realizes that Charlotte has passed away, he gets super emotional, making it very hard to watch. When King Robert Baratheon was critically wounded, he appointed Ned as the regent. While acting as regent, Ned began to suspect that something wasn't right with the royal children. After extensive research, he discovered that the king's children were not his biological offspring. They were actually born from incest between Queen Cersei Lannister and her twin brother, Jaime Lannister. Ned confronts Cersei and tells her to confess and flee the capital with her children. She refused and had Ned framed for treason after the king's death. He was told to confess to this treason in exchange for mercy, and he does, even though he didn't commit the crime. Ned was imprisoned and sentenced to exile for joining the Night's Watch. However, on the day of his public exile, Joffrey Baratheon, the Queen's son, goes against their agreement and orders Ned's execution to show his dominance. Ned Stark was beheaded on the spot in front of his two daughters. Ned Stark's death changed everything in the Seven Realms. It triggered chaos in the north, fueled several battles, and led to the disappearance of his younger daughter, Arya. His older daughter, Sansa, remained in the capital and was constantly abused by Joffrey and the royal family. His death was the moment the show stopped playing by the rules. In Pixar's Up, Ellie's death isn't shown as a single moment, but rather as a montage sequence that chronicles her entire marriage to Carl, making it one of the most emotionally devastating scenes in animated film history. The couple shares dreams of adventure and starting a family, but life continuously presents obstacles. After learning they cannot have children, Carl and Ellie redirect their dreams toward their childhood fantasy of visiting Paradise Falls. They save money in a jar, but repeatedly have to break into their adventure fund for life's emergencies, a broken leg, house repairs, and other unexpected expenses. Despite these setbacks, they find joy in their simple life together. As they grow older, Carl finally buys plane tickets to Paradise Falls, planning to surprise Ellie with the trip. However, Ellie falls ill and ends up in the hospital. In her final moments, she gives Carl her adventure book, and he discovers she had filled the pages with photos of their life together, with a note saying, "Thanks for the adventure, now go have a new one." In My Girl, Thomas J. Sennett serves as the best friend and first love of Vada Sultanfuss, an 11-year-old girl who's obsessed with death and disease. Thomas J. is sweet, loyal, and severely allergic to bees, a detail that becomes tragically significant. Their friendship is innocent and pure, representing the beauty of childhood connection. The tragedy occurs when Vada loses her mood ring in the woods and asks Thomas J. to help her find it. While searching for the ring, Thomas J. accidentally hits a beehive and gets stung multiple times. Due to his severe allergy, he goes into anaphylactic shock and dies before help can arrive. The most heartbreaking aspect comes during Thomas J.'s funeral, when Vada sees him in the casket and becomes hysterical. She screams at him to wake up, telling him he can't see without his glasses, and tries to put them on his face. Her innocent understanding of death clashes with the brutal reality of losing someone she loves. Thomas J.'s death is particularly devastating because it represents the loss of innocence and first love. The randomness of his death, dying while doing something kind for a friend, makes it feel especially cruel. His death forces Vada to confront mortality in a way that no child should have to, and the scene remains one of the most emotionally brutal moments in family cinema. In The Hunger Games, Rue's death serves as a turning point that transforms the story from a survival tale into a powerful statement about innocence lost and revolution sparked. Rue, the young tribute from District 11, forms an alliance with Katniss, reminding her of her own younger sister, Prim. During the games, Rue gets trapped in a net set by the career tributes, and when Katniss arrives to help, she finds Rue with a spear through her abdomen. Katniss holds the dying girl, and Rue asks her to sing. Through her tears, Katniss sings a lullaby while Rue peacefully passes away, her hand falling limp in Katniss's. After Rue's death, Katniss surrounds her body with flowers, turning her death into a beautiful, defiant act of humanity in the face of the capital's brutality. When Rue's district sees this act of love and respect on television, they send Katniss a gift of bread, and later begin their own uprising against the capital. In Logan, the aging Wolverine faces his final battle after a lifetime of violence and pain. Set in a dystopian future where mutants are nearly extinct, Logan's healing factor is failing, and he's slowly dying from adamantium poisoning. His death comes after protecting Laura and the other mutant children from the Reavers and X-24. During the climactic battle, Logan is mortally wounded by his own clone, X-24, suffering injuries that his failing healing factor cannot repair. With his last breath, he tells Laura, "Don't be what they made you," encouraging her to be better than the weapon she was created to be. Laura calls him Daddy for the first time, and Logan dies peacefully in her arms. The scene concludes with Laura and the other children burying Logan, with Laura placing an X made of sticks over his grave, symbolically turning the cross into the X-Men symbol. On the fourth night of the boat voyage, the Titanic hit an iceberg while sailing through the North Atlantic Ocean. The impact caused the lower parts of the ship to flood. Jack helped Rose, the woman he met and fell in love with on the ship, escape from being trapped in her cabin. As the ship began to sink, Jack stayed with her through the chaos and ensured she reached safety. When the ship finally broke in two and sank completely, they found themselves in the open ocean. Jack found a wooden board that could only hold one person and placed Rose on it, staying in the freezing water beside her. Even though they tried to stay awake together, Jack eventually froze to death in the Atlantic Ocean that night. Jack's death left a lasting emotional impact on the audience. His sacrifice allowed Rose to survive and go on to live a whole life. His death showed how deep their love had become in such a short time. In The Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring, Boromir's death serves as both redemption and tragedy. Initially corrupted by the ring's influence, Boromir attempts to take it from Frodo, causing the Hobbit to flee and the Fellowship to scatter. However, when Uruk-hai attacks, Boromir realizes his mistake and fights to protect Merry and Pippin. Despite his valiant efforts, Boromir is overwhelmed by the enemy forces and shot with multiple arrows. Even mortally wounded, he continues fighting until he can no longer stand. When Aragorn arrives, Boromir confesses his failure and asks for forgiveness, saying he tried to take the ring from Frodo. With his dying breath, Boromir tells Aragorn that he would have followed him as his captain and king, acknowledging Aragorn's rightful place as leader. Aragorn responds that Boromir has already proven his honor and that he will not fail his city, Gondor. Boromir dies peacefully, finally at rest after his moment of redemption. What makes Boromir's death so emotional is his journey from corruption to redemption. His initial fall makes him relatable and human, while his final sacrifice proves his true, noble heart. The scene is made even more powerful by Aragorn's acceptance and forgiveness, showing that even those who stumble can find redemption through sacrifice. In the third season of the popular British TV show, Peaky Blinders, the Shelby family are at war with the Italian gang family, the Changrettas. In an act of retribution, they attack the third Shelby brother, John, and not only was the scene so sad, but John's exit was also cardinal in the show as he was a fan favorite. Tommy sends Michael to bring John, as the family needed to be together, but John and his wife, Esme, refused to come with Michael. While the three were arguing outside, a carriage rides in front of the house, and from it some men jump out and gun John down. They also injure Michael, but Esme is safe as Michael had pushed her in the house. The mournings and the scenes that follow are heartbreaking. After Gaia releases Typhon to punish the gods of Olympus, he starts destroying all of their kingdoms and residences. Seeing that his next location was going to be the underworld, Hades and Persephone rush back to save their children, but Persephone is unable to enter the underworld because she is to be immortal at that time of the year. So Persephone stays outside and fights Typhon to buy Hades some time to get the children out. During the fight, Typhon slams Persephone at the entrance of the underworld, which then kills her. The scene is really heartbreaking and at the same time poetic because when Persephone is slammed on the entrance of the underworld, she is indirectly killed by her inability to enter the underworld. There are also a couple of emotional deaths like Zeus sacrificing himself for Hera during the war against the giants that she initiated, and Electra's death, considering the fact that she was killed by Seraphim, who was secretly her son. Rengoku's death in the Japanese animation Demon Slayer was after his fight with the third highest-ranking demon, Akaza. In an intense battle to protect Tanjiro and his friends, Akaza sticks his arm through Rengoku, but Rengoku cuts it off, leaving the cursed arm in his body. Akaza manages to escape, but the arm in Rengoku starts to kill him. When he realizes that his time is limited, in a very sad montage, he reflects on his life and urges Tanjiro to remain optimistic. He also asks Tanjiro to send some messages to his brother and his father, and just before he dies, he sees his late mother, and after she says she was proud of him, Rengoku dies with a warm smile on his face. In Little Women, Beth March contracts the scarlet fever after coming in contact with the baby from the Hummel family, who was already infected. After a long fight, Beth recovers from the illness, but her body system has been severely weakened, and in her final scene, reflects about her life to Joe, who reads a book to her on her bedside to keep her company. She talks about how she never felt enough, how she always wanted to be left behind but is now going ahead, and how she believed in Joe's abilities as an amazing writer. A strong wind pushes the windows open, and right after Jay shuts them, she turns back to see that Beth had given up the ghost. The Wild Thornberrys is a 1998 Nickelodeon series that follows a wildlife enthusiastic family, the Thornberrys. The episode Forget Me Not ends with the very touching death of Rebecca, the elephant, an elderly elephant that Eliza's father saved a long time ago from some poachers. In her final scenes, in a very touching conversation between Eliza and the Marion Ross-voiced Rebecca, she talks about how she was ready to go to the next life after leading her herd for so long and raising calves that already have calves of their own. Rebecca then comforts the crying Eliza and tells her to never forget the time they spent together before she peacefully passes on. During the Vietnamese War, Forrest Gump and the rest of the 9th Infantry Division are hit by an ambush attack, and Forrest Gump's best friend, Bubba, gets shot in his midsection. At first, Forrest Gump tries to get away from the fire, but then goes back to find Bubba. When he finds him, Bubba tries to hide his wound from Forrest Gump and continuously asks how he was. Despite an air attack, Forrest Gump carries Bubba to safety, and just before he dies, Bubba's last words were, "I want to go home," which made his death so heartbreaking. Later in the movie, when Forrest Gump starts a shrimp business, he honors his buddy by naming it Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. In the Pixar movie Inside Out 1, Riley's emotions, joy and sadness get lost in Riley's mind, and on their way, they come across one of Riley's imaginary friends from her early childhood named Bing Bong. However, as Riley gets older, Bing Bong becomes less important, and when Joy meets Bing Bong, she tells him that she will put him back in business if he helps them find their way back. After a couple of wrong turns, they find themselves in the memory dump, and that is where Bing Bong realizes that he is starting to fade away completely from Riley's memory. So, Bing Bong and Joy tried to use Bing Bong's wagon to blast out to the surface, but they kept failing. On the third try, Bing Bong jumps off the wagon just before it flies, sacrificing himself and allowing Joy alone to fly out of the dump and save Riley's mind. He then starts to fade, and just before he completely vanishes, he quietly asks Joy to take Riley to the moon, waves goodbye, and fades away, forgotten. He gave up his existence to make Riley happy one last time. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe, and you also might enjoy watching these. Thanks.